Good morning, everybody, or good evening, everybody. Wow. Um, we're getting ahead of the time change a little bit. For those who don't know me, my name is Joe Dickinson. I'm the president of the Ontario Forage Council. Um, my wife and kids have a farm down here in South Buxton, Ontario, and we run a small herd of cattle after downsizing from our previous operation. So welcome to the third night of Profitable Pastures. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and we'll start by thanking our conference sponsors, Brussels Agri-Service, Range Ward, and the Beef Farmers of Ontario. Tonight's presentation is a panel discussion on watering systems for Pasture, Amadou Thiam, Steve Sickle, and Tom Cunningham, facilitated by Christine. I'm going to ask all of you to tell us a bit about yourself, where you're based, and a little bit about your farm. And Amadou, I'm not letting you off the hook on this. I'd like to hear a little bit of your background as well on the ag engineering side. And most of us know Christine, but I'm sure she can introduce herself a little bit as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Christine.
Thanks, Joe. Um, yeah, so tonight's panel, as Joe indicated, we're going to be talking a bit about water systems on pasture. And this is the kind of topic that maybe we don't discuss enough when we are thinking about setting up rotational grazing systems, when we are planning how we're going to make all of that work. And I think it's important to add that lens to the conversation, really, because the watering system can have a major impact on how successful a rotational grazing system is. So the slide that you're looking at right now, how far can animals walk to water without reducing animal production? So this is based on some research that was done to determine, how close does the water source need to be to really keep livestock production up? And it depends a lot on the class of livestock you're grazing. Um, so you can see the daily water consumption on a dairy cow is extremely high, over 130 liters per day, and she's not willing to walk very far to get that water, so maximum 500 feet. Once we get into beef cattle, if we're looking at stockers or yearlings, backgrounders, replacement heifers, all of that, they can walk a little bit further, about 820 feet. Our beef cows, they're mature, they're a little bit tougher, they're drinking a lot more than our young stock, but they're able to walk a little bit further to get it. So, about twice as far as those yearling cattle can. And sheep originated in a drier climate. If they have to, they can walk pretty far. They can walk, 3.5 kilometers before we really start noticing negative impacts on sheep production if they have to travel distances for water. Um, but what's fascinating is that some other work looked at how the distance to the water source impacted the carrying capacity of a pasture. And the magic number was that 250 meters or 820 feet. So if any class of cattle had to walk further than that to get to a water source, we saw the carrying capacity of the pasture drop. So the location of our water source is important, but also making sure that the water source can actually meet the needs of the herd or flock is also a really important factor. So tonight's conversation is all looking at how do we get that water to our livestock. To help me with this conversation tonight, um, I brought three friends, four friends. So yeah, I guess if you guys don't mind introducing yourselves, Steve, do you mind getting us started?
Sure. Steve Sickle here from north end of Brant County. Farm 25 cows, rotational grazed with my family. Ethan's here. He's 15 now. He's going to tell me what I said wrong because he's the one that usually moves the cows and involved with that. My daughter is too, but she's away at university, her fourth year of at University of Guelph. She wants to be a large animal vet.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Tom, can you tell us a little bit about where you are and about your farm?
Yep. So Tom Cunningham, we're Bruce County, so we're right in the middle of the Bruce Peninsula. We farm. We like to say we farm right between Wyerton and Lions Head, so right in the middle of the peninsula here. We're like a medium-sized cow-calf operation. Some rotational, some conventional grazing. Uh, yeah, we're cow-calf. We background fair number of calves and yeah, that's kind of pretty much it. Farm with my family and lucky to work with my mom and dad and my wife and my kids and yeah, consider myself a pretty lucky guy.
Thanks, Tom. And Amadou.
Yes, Amadou Thiam, senior engineer with OMAFA. And right now I'm working as air quality engineer. But when I started my career for 3 years, I designed a watering system for cow-calf operation in Western Quebec. For 3 years, I did that and was able to build an Excel tool to help farmers to calculate and size their watering system. So when Christine approached the group, I said, "Hey, I did that and I know that." So that's great. Yeah.
So Amadou is bringing our engineer's perspective to tonight's conversation. So, for those of you in the audience this evening, please stick your questions for our panel in the chat. I'll field them as we go. But to get us started, do you mind telling us, how do you water livestock on pasture on your farms? And for Amadou, what would be a couple of the more common solutions that you've seen on farms in your work? So who wants to take that one first?
I can jump in, I guess. It's then Steve can tell me what I'm doing wrong. How about that? Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of everything here. So we're very lucky where we farm with a lot of natural water sources, creeks and streams and things like that. We've really honed in on fencing out the rivers and streams, and that got started. We started working with a group up here, the Bruce Peninsula Biosphere, and they got us kind of started in that way. And then we've done a lot of it on our own since because we saw the benefits. So once we started fencing out the rivers and streams, obviously we had to start finding ways to water the cattle. So we started with some crossings, some river crossings, and same thing. We're blessed with a lot of escarpment, so flat rock, things of that nature. So we'd pick an area where there wasn't going to be a lot of erosion, where the water was just running over the rock, and we'd just fence that area out. So that was their first little, step into, and then we moved from that to some solar systems. We have two different ones that we're using now, and then for winter water, we're kind of a little different again. I've got a bunch of frost-free nose pumps that I've installed here and there and everywhere, and that's a little bit interesting on itself. So that's wintering cows on pasture. We use that. So we do have some pictures we can talk later, but that's just a quick intro, I guess.
So I'm probably the same. I've got a mixed bag of everything. The permanent pasture is fenced up the middle with a water line underneath the fence with spigots. There's enough spigots for 28 pastures. So there'll be 7 spigots because you got 4 paddocks per spigot. So I made my water trough. It's 100 gallon. It's on a little steel sleigh that we drag behind the gator. So at first I said, "Oh, just dump it." Well, I hate wasting water, so I don't have to dump it now. We just drag it. Some sloshes out, but you roll up the hose or throw the hose in the trough and drag it. When the cows are on corn stalks or cover crop, I've located a motion sensor water bowl in the middle of 3 fields, at the kind of the apex of the 3 fields, and then it doesn't freeze. It drains out the bottom of the trough when the cows walk away. So I just brought the cows up from that 2 days ago because they're calving in the barn now. And then some other spots that now that I've got into cover crops and grazing more on different fields further from home base, I'll maybe take an old milk tank and a pump and just because I don't like letting cows have access to a pond. They just tramp it in and just make a mess of the banks. So then I'll pump it into the tank once, fill the tank once a day. And if they're eating good cover crop, they don't need a lot of water, especially with turnip in that mix. Cover and corn stalks in the winter, they're usually mixing that with snow. So that's my blend of what I'm doing for water.
Thanks. And Amadou, what were you commonly seeing when you were designing water trough or water systems?
Yeah, so there are mainly two type of system. They are the pressurized systems, so that you use a power pump to pump the water where you need it. And sometimes, you don't have enough power to do that. So you can use the solar power to make sure you bring water where you need it, depending of your sources, being in a well, being a creek or like a spring or so on. But that's the pressurized system, and they work very well because they are reliable and also it's flexible. You can replace that as you want. The second system are the gravity system. Those are less common because you need that elevation. Like you need that at least, let's say 2% elevation, like when you have it. So you for every, let's say 100 feet, you will need like 2 feet denivellation in order to bring that water where you need it. So basically, gravity is low power, no cost on energy, and they can be simple in design. So those are the two systems that I have seen happening a lot. And the pressurized systems, because of the distance, farmers tend to go with those solar with battery systems. So that also works very well.
Okay, thank you. We've already got a question in the chat, and this one's for Tom. Can you give some more details on your winter nose pump? So what distance is the water being pumped? Are they calf friendly? And how well do those perform in the winter?
Yeah, so Christine's gonna prompt my little pictures, I guess. And yeah, so I'll just give you the rundown. So they are recommended to run about 100 cows in the winter. I pushed them right now. I got 200 cows drinking out of one right now. So there's a picture of mine right there. That I took that picture. There was minus 30, and like I said, there's actually 180 cows drinking out of that one right now, and that nose pump is pumping water straight up from a depth of 18 feet, and they'll pump as far as you want to dig down. That's just a hand or a dug well that I dug with an excavator. It's 20 feet deep. The water at its lowest is 18, at its highest is 5 feet. So like the higher your static water level is, the easier it is to pump. So yeah, right now the water is really high, obviously, but very, very maintenance free. I carry a little, I call it a dead blow hammer in the tractor with me, and I'll walk over there every now and again, and you just kind of make sure the pendulum is free. But honestly, once the cattle are trained to that, it is like the cat's ass. They walk it down to the nose pump one at a time. They'll stand there, wait their turn. One cow will pump away, and then the next one will drink. It's the trick is the training process, and what I've found is the easiest is getting like introducing new cows to it with a group that already knows how to run it. So they'll come down, sniff around, and they'll see a cow pumping, and then all of a sudden the new cows or the new heifers are figuring it out as well. So 5 pumps, and we got water. So like that's 5 pumps. So if you can imagine that static water level is 5 feet, there's a hole in that pipe, and the water is draining down to that static level. So it's not going to freeze down in there. So basically the trick is when they're training them, I plug off my drain so that the water is right at the top, and in the winter you take the plug out of the drain so that it'll drain down below the frost line. Is it calf friendly? No, it isn't. Until they're about 500 pounds, then they'll pump away on it. Then the cows will teach the calves. So like little wee baby calves doesn't work so well. Big calves, I've seen big calves drinking out of it, not an issue. So that's a lot of info, but If there's anything else that I missed, just fire away. I can try to answer. So that one there is on like a dug well, like I said. I have another one that's on a drilled well on a 5-inch casing. That static water level is down about 20 feet, and I only put mature cows on that one because it is I can barely pump it by myself with my hand, and I'm a big guy. I'm like 250 pounds, and I can barely pump the water. But those mature cows that know how to work it will walk up and they will push that thing with their nose and pump water on their own. It's actually quite amazing. But that's kind of the nose pumps in a nutshell.
How much is the actual nose pump, Tom?
How much do they cost?
Yeah.
I think they're around $1,400 now, but that gets you the steel hood and the pump in the like there's a pump that sits down underneath, and you get a bit of other junk that comes with it, but you're kind of just paying for the idea more than anything. Like I build the lids myself because I'd like a little different design. If I was going to do it again, I would probably put multiple pumps on one well, so I could put more cows together. So put like 3 or 4 pumps all on one bigger, like maybe a bigger diameter culvert type of a thing. But
And have you had problems with that freezing?
never.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how many
One time,
cows?
one winter, I didn't unplug my drain and it still didn't freeze. So it's just the water is warm, and there's so much water in that culvert, and it just thought that water is warm, like it's ground temperature.
And how many cows you have using that nose pump?
That one in the video, there's 180.
And how far do they have to walk to get to it?
I was trying to drop a pin on my phone. Just depends where I'm feeding them. It's probably within it's maxing out that 1,800 feet. Like it can be quite a ways. They travel. They will travel. This is interesting. I was trying to take a video today, but I wouldn't have got it up on the chat here. But where I'm feeding them, they can walk one direction and drink at a crossing that's open, it's not frozen, or they can walk the other direction that's quite a bit farther, and they will walk the other direction to the nose pump because it's cleaner water. So yeah, it's pushing. It's over 1,000 feet. I can't get my map to work here on my phone. I'll work away at it here, but
That's all right. No, it's interesting because at a certain point that herd behavior kicks in too, but it sounds
yeah.
like your cows are comfortable enough with the setup that they'll go back without overwhelming the water source.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
All
It's
right.
not perfect. The training process sucks, and a lot of people give up before they get it. But my best, like I said, the best thing is just to put them in there, forget about them. They will figure it out. They always do.
All right. A follow-up question on those nose pumps, and I don't know if this is more for Tom or for Amadou, but is there a way to create a setup with the nose pumps to pump out of a lake instead of a well or a culvert?
There is that one that I have there, like it's designed to pump straight up. There is like Pasture pumps. They're made by a different company, and they'll pump like horizontal. But I do have one of those set up that pumps out of a dugout, so it'd be the same idea. So you essentially just dig a wet well beside your water source, and then you would run, either a French drain or a pipe of some description into your lake or river that would like drain into your containment, so into your culvert. So you'd essentially build a French drain and some sort of storage to pump straight up again. But if you're using the frost-free type like mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue with the horizontal nose pump is that you cannot put them far away from the spring or the creek, and that still will cause some damage to the creek and so on because it's so close. Because if they come and keep using that nose pump that is too close to the creek, so there will be some erosion built up over there. So you want to make sure how few of them, so the area is not used at maximum.
And is there a suggested buffer distance then to set a nose pump back from a pond or a dugout or a stream? Or does it kind of just depend on what that bank looks like?
I'm sure there is, but yeah, with my experience, it's just whatever kind of whatever ground you're on. Like if you're on a gravelly ground, or would probably be different than clay. But Amadou might know a better technical answer on that.
Yeah, you cannot really put them very far from the water source. So the idea is to use them only when you have low density cows using that nose pump. But you have a lot of cows using that. I wouldn't recommend having a nose pump because it's like one by one to drink at those nose pumps. So that will augment the concentration of the cow and the sediment and so on. So either you have few of them or you just use it when it's low density. And Tom did mention those two disadvantage of nose pump. That mean you need to train those cows. At least you need to train at least one cow. So if one cow know how to use it, the rest are going to use it. And the other issue is we underlook when designing watering system is a calf. So the calf won't be able to use those nose pumps. So you will need to have something for them. So those are two disadvantages of those nose pumps.
And I will add a third. They
Yeah.
don't make nose pumps for sheep, as far as I'm aware. So just like the calves are too small, sheep are too small. Yeah. I guess while we're talking about winter water systems, Steve, I'll pull up a picture of your culvert. Just the way that that drains. And maybe we can talk a little bit about how you handle your winter water setup because it's different than Tom's.
Yeah, I didn't get a real good picture, but to the side of that, there's a solar panel and a motion sensor. And then where all the wiring comes out, I just got a cooler there with a deep cycle battery that is supposed to stay charged. This winter was not that sunny, so I was going back there with a gator and just hooking up the booster cables to the battery, or sometimes just bring the battery up and charge it. But when the cows walk away from that, it drains back down through the pump, and the water is about 8 feet below the ground there. It's just a natural water table there because there's a culvert that comes from the swamp at the top end of the picture. There's water source that runs through there. It used to be an open ditch and we buried it and with a culvert. So it works well when the sun's shining.
And so is that system something that's like 90% homemade or were the, like I know
I,
Tom
I
said
bought
there's
I
component
bought it
parts.
from Kellen Solar out in Saskatchewan. I think they're from.
Okay. All
So
right. And
the pump is hanging on the hose it's a submersible pump.
okay. And I mean this photo we're not seeing ice built up around it or anything. Have you ever had problems with this setup freezing?
It's never froze. No.
Okay.
And it's constantly pumping and it's got overflow level that drains back down while it's still pumping. If the cows are monkeying around and just moving around but not drinking, it's just over pumping and overflowing back into the well. And then when they walk away, it drains back down through the pump through the very bottom of that bowl.
How deep is your wet well?
That's only 2 culverts tall, or it's an 8 foot section and a 4 foot section.
Okay.
Every once in a while, I got to go down there with a bucket, and Ethan has to pull the stuff up and clean out the sediment in the bottom just to give it more capacity because it'll silt in.
Yep. Cool.
Through the bottom.
What type of pump you use if you have solar system?
In that one,
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's just a submersible pump, 12 volt.
No. Those carrier system from Western Canada, usually they have like a ball in the top, and the cow have to push the ball, the water is coming, and once he stop pushing, then it's a hydrant. As you said, just the water will go down, and so it doesn't freeze. So they sell the system already made like that. So it's like there's a ball, and the cow push the ball, and then the water come up, they drink, and then the rest of the water go back down. So they are a very good system, and I think Western Quebec is colder than Ottawa is colder than Bruce or some other place, and they don't freeze. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, I haven't seen a system like yours further north, Steve, because you are fairly far south in the province. But yeah, the heat from the ground makes a big difference, I think, on keeping some of these systems running.
Yeah,
I have one of those systems that Steve has sitting in my garage on the floor. It doesn't work very good in the garage, so I got to get it hooked up here this summer. It's exactly the same as that, but
it's a 30-inch culvert, so yeah, there's a fair bit of heat that's keeps that warm.
So for either of you, what challenges do your current watering systems pose, whether they're the winter ones or the year like the summer ones? Um, what challenges do you face with those, or have you faced in the past with those?
My summer one, my center water line, I don't have issues in the summer, but in the winter when it's drained, the darn coyotes like the taste of the plastic and they'll bite it and put holes in it.
That's aggravating. Yeah.
I wrote down three. So like if we're talking about like systems for remote watering, which I kind of classify everything that I do with water systems as remote. So high cost to get into it. It's essentially free to let your cattle drink out of the river or drink out of a dugout. That's what everybody's done for 100 years. So that high cost to get it set up, I do believe that you get that back quick though. Like I do believe you get it back, but it's that high cost to get in. Um, Steve touched on it. They're weather dependent, so you have to have a lot of charge capacity or storage capacity for to keep them running in the winter, like the solar systems especially, and then like the maintenance with the solar. But those are the things that I had challenges.
Hmm. And Amadou, in your work, what are some common
Yeah.
challenges that you have seen that farmers are
There,
working with to get water out on pasture?
yeah. So the first challenge I see is like the location, the poor location of that water tank. You mentioned that the distance they have to travel to get to the water have an impact. So on the design and so on. So that's one challenge is sometimes uh, farmer tend to put only one and cows have to travel a lot and that have an impact on quantity of water and how they drink and so on and have impact also on the cow itself. The other one is the undersized pipe. So usually you use just that pipe that is available is 3/4 inch, but sometimes that is undersized. So you have to make sure you use the right pipe size in order to bring that flow rate you need at the water tank, and also, of course, the inadequate water storage. So if the recommendation is to have at least 100-gallon water tank. If you have less than that, there is some issue that the flow is not enough. Some cow will drink, but some of them will not drink. Especially the calf, they won't be able to drink, and at the rate they're gonna come, a calf will come and the water will be so low. There's not enough water for them. They cannot reach the bottom to drink. So you have to have enough water storage in there. And of course, we talk about it, all the winter watering system. It is a challenge during the winter. Is keep in mind to always use those pipes that are at least 100 psi, and you have to bury your pipe to protect them against freezing. And the system that Tom or Steve have are great for watering during the winter. So yeah, those are the challenge. But basically, just make sure you use the right pipe, you design it well, the location of the tank, and also make sure that that tank have enough storage for your herd when they come.
So, Amadou, you mentioned, making sure that you get the right size of water lines to even just move enough water fast enough. How would a farmer go about sizing their lines to make sure that the line's going to be the right size? Like what?
Yeah. So I think we touched in the beginning. The first thing you need to know is the herd size, how much water they drink, and how far they are. So if they are like less than 800 feet, so then you sure that you can size that tank at at least 1/10 of the need. If they are farther than that, you can size that at 1/3 of the need. And then once you know that, you will say, okay, they will stay for 4 hours, 8 hours. So that gives you the flow rate you might need. And also you have to take account how long is that water tank. So we say rule of thumb, I think it's maybe a foot per cow going to drink at the same time. So depending how big is that water tank, you know how many cows can drink at the same times. Is it only one side or two side? But you calculate a foot uh, per cow, and that give you at the rate they drink, like a cow calf, it's like 20 liter a minute they're going to drink and so on. So, and with that, you have to calculate, the elevation, the restriction of the pipe, and all that will give you the required psi that you need for that design. And then from that, you can select. There are some tables you can select the right pipe you need. You make sure that you don't go over the pressure that is needed from the pipe, and then you select the right pipe. Just basic that. I have this calculator, but that's what we use. But it's very important. The distance play a lot because they will drink more if they are far away, and also make sure if you have a small water tank, so that's going to have an impact on that. If you have a bigger one, and yeah, and also if you have to pump up, they're also going to have an impact. Yeah.
Okay. Are those tables available somewhere, like in a publication or a fact sheet or
The
something? And can we
table,
share that with our audience?
yes, I will be able to share that table. It's available in a lot of publications, and the table are from just simple flow equation, like Bernoulli equations, and uh, you can kind of calculate that easily. I have the Excel that I used to use before, and to calculate those pipe and so on. So yeah, I can show that if needed.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing that, then it's something we can email out to people that have signed up for this because that might be helpful if anyone's trying to design a system.
No problem.
I,
So we do.
I
Oh,
had that issue the day of installation of mine. I hooked it up to one well on the farm and it was lower elevation. Hooked it all up, went to the top of the hill. I've got some elevation in my pasture, probably 120 feet difference. Top of the hill, no water coming out of the hose. So let's try it out of the other well. All kinds of water. It's like, so the well was the difference. One well was a jet pump, one was a submersible, just had more push and a bigger size.
Yeah.
Steve, we have another question come in for you about your winter, or sorry, yeah, your winter water system with the motion sensor.
Yep.
So, does that eye ever ice over or get covered with snow? Um, Kind of comparable to, when satellite reception is bad because the dish is covered with snow. Like, do you have problems with it detecting cows?
No, Birgit, I do not because it's got a little cover on it and it's kind of tilted down and the snow never gets it. It never covers it.
Okay.
And yes, we had snow this winter.
Thank you, Steve.
Um, yeah, you did have snow this winter. I know it's been a snowy one for everyone, and but yeah, knowing just angling it is a good trick to make sure that that doesn't happen. So,
One question I have for Tom and Steve: how do you place the water from the feeding where you feed and where is the salt? Is that place something on the grazing and so on? Like, do you put them all together, or do you kind of strategically place them in different places?
I have my salt and mineral and water all within 50 to 100 feet.
Yeah, so I wintered the cows, or this, where that nose pump is in the picture anyway. We'll use it for an example. I'll winter those cows in different areas. So that water system's kind of in a central area, and then there's another one in a different area that'll do two winterings. So like they'll, 2025 is here, 2026 is beside it. So they're kind of in a central location, and then the cows will be like, what's the word? Just pinwheeled away from that location where the feed is. So I'm never feeding around it. I'm feeding away from it. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No, it's it answer like for summer grazing, like it's always important where you place your watering system and your salt, and also where is the shade, because they're going to move between those places, and then you can make sure you have adequate grazing there. But if you put them all in one place, they will stay on that place more than moving around. So that's also is sometimes a challenge how you place those and make sure like the shade and the salt and the water are dispersed in the pasture. Yeah.
So, my next question for the three of you is kind of the reason why we're having this conversation tonight, but why do you think it's so difficult for farmers to choose a water system? Because this honestly is one of my most asked questions is why is water system so hard?
Because a pond's easy, or the water bowl in the barn's easy. But it never dawned on me until after I did it. Now my calves can drink. Before, the calves on summer pasture, the calves never got a drink because the cows would be fighting. The cows would leave. Well, calves following mama. So, and they couldn't reach the bowl really. The big bowls were designed for cows.
I think a lot of people, there was a little bit of, I think stigma is the right word about solar, like solar systems and being overcomplicated and hard to maintain and expensive to fix. But the technologies came a long ways. Like solar panels themselves are a lot more reliable than and cheaper than they used to be. And and those bilge pumps, like the pumps that I use, they're cheap and they're actually fairly simple. So I think that was the thing. Like they were just like Steve said, the dugouts were easy and solar panels were expensive and hard to maintain. But why it's hard to choose a certain system, I don't know the answer to that. But I feel like as farmers, it's like what you know is always what you go to, and we're always afraid to sometimes we're afraid to try new things. So
Yeah.
there is a picture. Maybe this is a good time. There is a picture on one slideshow of a dugout that's been here on this farm where I live forever. And I had some leftover junk and we fenced it off and put a solar system in, and it's made a difference. So this if you just before you play it, maybe it's not a video, but this was just like it looked like a desert, and it was terrible, and there was no grass growing, there was no life around the pond was always muddy and crappy, and that's just an old tank that I had and some junk that we had left over, and I built this system, and it is you can see how clean that water is coming out of this dugout. And I'm sorry if it won't play, but it's just it's a really great little spot now. I'm really proud of this. So I think if anyone's afraid to try it or to fence them out of an area, this is just you should just do it because it's just benefits outweigh the cost and the time to do. So
I
there we go. So it's just a single strand of wire and just a bunch of junk to build it. But
always figured out with the watering systems we got, I can drink the water. Where
yeah,
before you'd never drink the water the cows are drinking, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
I know, Tom, you also sent me a bunch of photos of another I guess it's a stream exclusion watering project. So maybe I'll go back
Yeah.
to that and maybe you can
I
tell us
th-
a little bit more about that one.
yeah, like I threw those in more for like I threw those videos and pictures in it because like I said, that was like um our first little thing. Like we fenced out the rivers, and it was like, why would you fence out the rivers? Now it's going to be more work. But then, if you look over the fence, the grass is growing. We've planted some trees in there. The banks aren't eroding anymore, and that this where this pump is here is all sand. It's like a sand ridge of a bank. So the cattle were just wrecking it before we bought this place, and yeah, this one here it's two 160-watt panels, two 12-volt deep cycle batteries, and a bilge pump from Princess Auto, and it just floats out in the river on a little float, and that'll water. It's watering 60 pairs on that little plastic tank. So and there's a little remote float switch that floats in there, and 5 goldfish live in the trough. So.
Do you find the goldfish help keep it cleaner?
Oh yeah, it makes a big difference. Yeah, and they're fun to look at. Just take the kids and go check the fish.
I guess I've heard of people using fish, but I still have
Yeah.
questions. How long did the fish last?
Well, it's funny you asked that because I have one that is 5 years old, and he is, I don't know, he's probably a couple pounds. He's probably about this long, and we take him. He just not in this trough. He's in a different cement trough that we have, but we take him out of there. We put him in the barn in the winter, and he's in there with the background calves. And I actually checked him yesterday, and he survived the winter, so he's going to live one more summer in pasture.
And do you feed the fish, or do they get enough from like bugs and dropped
Yep, they
forage and stuff?
eat the algae and the forage, and yeah, we don't feed them at all. No. Yeah, so I'm just really impressed with how the banks and how quick the banks come back to life. I should have had a before picture, but yeah, super simple. You can make them as simple and as complicated as you want, but this one is like super, super simple.
I saw another question come in, but I gotta stop sharing the screen to see the chat. I'm trying to juggle several things at once here. Um, Kelly says that they have used goldfish in their tanks for a couple of years. The fish last for a couple of years. They don't feed them either, and they use them in their horse tanks as well, and they work very well. So thank you for sharing that, Kelly. Yeah.
My rotational grazing tank is only 100 gallons, but I find sometimes if there's a problem and a line pops off, it's empty, you got to babysit it for a while because the cows are thirsty and it's not strapped down, just gravity holding it. So you got to babysit it for probably an hour while the cows get watered up and get some tank water back in the tank to hold it down so they're not bunting it over so it's running all night.
That's why I really like using those precast tanks because they can't break them. They can't smash them or shove them around. When you set them in, they're there forever. We're kind of switching everything over to those cement tanks, but like we're not moving it. Like you're maybe moving yours every
I'm
day.
moving mine every day.
Yeah, so that's not an option, but yeah.
When it's dewy, it's all the gator can do to pull it up the hill when it's full.
Right. Yeah.
So Tom, did you use a charge controller with the setup that we just showed photos and video of?
Yes, and I buy those. Well, I got first one give to me. It was a program with the Biosphere, and that's why we buy them all from Kellens, and they build them the same place where Steve got his system from. So Kellen Solar, and they build a little charge controller, and you can switch them from 6 to 12 to 24 volts, whatever you decide, or whatever design you come up with. But I would recommend buying one because it's yeah, this is the peace of mind.
And what's something, sorry, I have to do that thing again. What's something you wish you knew before you set up any of the watering systems you have on your farms? Or used to have and have since replaced on your farms?
I would have done it sooner. I would have done it way sooner. Dad said it wouldn't work.
That's a motivator sometimes, isn't it?
Ethan, has your dad told you stuff won't work?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I wish I knew how easy how easy it would be. Like the solar system is, once you kind of wrap your head around it, like that it is actually fairly reliable or very reliable. Um, it's a lot. I wish I knew how easy it was going to be.
Yeah. You don't realize how much the cows spend time walking to water. You get water closer to them. They're not walking off pounds and not ruining the pasture because they're walking in the same spot. Because they don't all drink when they go for a drink. Now they just one will drink and the rest are still grazing.
Hmm. We have another goldfish question. Um, do we know how many goldfish would be an acceptable amount for oh, that can't be right. That's 100-gram stock tank. Oh, 100-gallon.
100 gallons.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I read too many research papers. My brain instantly went metric for a 100-gallon stock tank so that you see results from the fish. Do we know how many
Um,
fish?
when they're little, maybe someone has a better math for it, but like when they're small, we usually put like five in. That if they're little, like if they're brand new, we'll put five in, and honestly, they'll start to grow, and I usually split them apart or take them somewhere else usually, but like five when they're small, and you'll see results fairly quickly.
Does
I
the
know.
really big old one have a tank to himself now?
Yeah, we
Okay.
call him Fatso. Yeah, Fatso goes to Carl's for the summer down the road. So
Um, how high can you push water with the bilge pump? So, Jim's got beaver ponds in deeper gullies with maybe a 30 to 40-foot rise to the pasture from the water's surface. So, what kind of pumping capacity do we need? I don't know if this is for Amadou or for Tom's got the bilge pump going.
yeah, and Steve's will be similar, I think, but the bilge pump from Princess Auto, so that's pumping it like that is probably like 12 feet of elevation, but I don't know how much pipe it is. It says on the box, on the little box on those cheap little bilge pumps, it says right on it. I honestly don't know what their limits are.
Amadou, is this the kind of math that is in some of those resources that you're gonna share with us after?
Yeah, we will give you the power you need for your pump. Now for specific pumps, it depends. You're gonna buy the pump for that give you, the gallon per hour that you need. So it's going to be specifying that, and you going to select that pump. I don't have a specific. Depend on your systems. Yeah, and the pump you're going to select.
Steve, do you have anything to add? Or did
Oh,
we
I
cover?
think that covers it. The bigger the pump, the more battery you're going to need if you're running at 12 volt. You're maybe better off to have a bigger tank. Doesn't have to run as much.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of trade-offs to consider for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right, I'll make a last call for questions in the chat. Perfect timing. Amadou, can you recommend a really sturdy 12-volt pump for a solar system? Or how might I'll change the question a little bit. How might someone choose the right pump for a solar system, knowing that a lot of them are running 12-volt batteries?
yeah, it depends the flow rate you require, and you go for the required gallon per hour you need, and you will select that pump. They're different from those pump that we used to, but for solar pump, like there are those marine pump you use, that you call the bridge pumps. I have a confusion on the term, but I call it marine pump. Like those boat pumps, is that? Yeah. So, uh, yeah, it's depending what you kind of flow rate you need, and you select your pump, and so on. Keep in mind for the solar pump, it's not really like a solar system. It's not really a solar system. I call them a battery systems. Most like because you change your battery and change your and go charge them and bring them back. So it's more a battery system. The solar will recharge them, but it's usually like you will need to make sure you charge your battery. You have always a set of battery that you can use and bring uh, interchange it. And those pumps, they are very, what I recall, they are very like 12 volt, and they have usually the same uh, capacity, and that's what you're gonna use depending of what you need. Yeah.
If the question there, if they were looking for a certain brand, I don't want to recommend a brand, but I think just stick, like, if I would go to those Kellens or any of those reputable places and they've tried and tested all those different brands, I think they would have a good recommendation for if you're building the system on your own.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll clarify. Amadou and I cannot recommend a brand. We're public servants. There's lots of companies out there that make great products. Tom and Steve are farmers and are welcome to speak to their own experience with things. So that's why we're not able to give you a brand name on the very robust 12 volt pump you're looking for. So you're asking the wrong people in Amadou and I. Um, all right, just to kind of clarify the types of pumps we're talking about. So, um, is the bilge pump like a submersible pump, but it's pushing water rather than sucking it? Is that the difference?
a bilge pump will suck water, like
Sucking water.
yeah, it's sucking water. I don't know. It's pushing water also though, so I'm not really sure what the terminology is.
And
It's
because kind of Amadou was asking about this too. So the bilge pump is sold assuming you're going to put it in a boat to get water out. So it is a marine pump. Are we
yeah,
agreeing on
those
that?
it's a
Okay.
marine pump, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess they are pushing water. They are pushing water, and that's the way that that impeller pushes it, I believe. You're gonna have to take one apart now.
And since it's a solar system, they're working with direct current. So if you have those different type of pump, like you have to make sure you have the right wiring and so on that you're going to use. In this case, you work with direct current, so that's why we call it marine pumps, and we used to get them with those marine shop. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, what depth is recommended for summer pasture systems that are winterized against cold weather to avoid heat from sun or early frost pressure?
A little bit less than a foot, I would say, and yeah, a little bit less than a foot to put your piping system, so that will protect them against freezing. But you need to bury those pipes uh, in order to protect them from freezing, and make sure you use this 100 psi. If you put them just like that on the ground, you will have hot water for sure, and they will
So
freeze.
I work with several farmers that run their water lines on the surface, along their fence line. So livestock can't trample on them because it's right under the fence line. And they have found that the grass will grow over them and shade them in the summer. So if they're not looking for winterized water lines, they are able to keep that water from being very hot just by leaving those lines in place, blowing them out at the end of the year so they don't freeze. And that is another way to keep them from being scorching hot water in the summer.
Yep, that's the way mine work. But the trouble is, I've got such undulation. The cold weather in the winter shortens them up, and they pull up out of the grass, and that's where the coyotes find them.
Ah, that is a problem. All right. Well, we are just about out of time. So I want to thank all of you for being on our panel this evening. I know I've learned some things. I hope our audience has learned some things, and you've given us lots to think about in terms of ways we can, get water, clean water, palatable water out to livestock on pasture, and lots of different ways that that is done. So with that, I'm going to hand things back over to Joe to close us out for the evening.
I learned some stuff. That was neat.
Same here.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for your presentations today. This was an excellent panel discussion that we've had again. Just as we get to the end of Profitable Pastures for now, just going to again thank our sponsors, Brussels Agri-Service, Range Ward, and the Beef Farmers of Ontario. And with that, I say thank you and good night.